Who is the biggest criminal on the global stage today? A former US president? A Venezuelan autocrat? Or leaders in Beijing and Moscow whose regimes are rooted in repression? Donald J. Trump, the only US president in history to be criminally convicted. In May 2024, he was found guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in New York related to hush money payments, establishing a historic criminal conviction, though the judge declined to impose jail time. That's not the only legal scrutiny he's faced. Trump has been charged in multiple criminal cases across federal and state courts, linked to election interference, mishandling classified documents, and business practices. Beyond courtrooms, Trump's leadership has been deeply polarizing. Critics say his rhetoric has stoked racial tensions and been widely viewed as racially charged, with a long record of commentary and actions that opponents describe as fueling divisions. His avoidance of military service during the Vietnam War, attributed to a bone spurs diagnosis, has been repeatedly mocked by critics as an example of privilege and a disconnect from the sacrifices asked of everyday Americans. Thousands of miles south, Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, is accused by the U.S. Department of Justice of leading a narco-state tied to cocaine trafficking and other organized crime activities through the so-called Cartel of the Suns. In January 2026, Maduro was captured by U.S. forces and brought to federal court in Manhattan to face drug trafficking charges. The charges have triggered broad international debate, with critics calling the U.S. action a breach of international law. Even within his own party, some leaders have been cautious about full endorsement of Trump's actions abroad. While not fearful in a literal sense, figures like Secretary of State Marco Rubio have publicly walked back or clarified Trump's bold claims about U.S. plans in Venezuela, reflecting internal tensions. Now consider global power dynamics. Vladimir Putin leads Russia with laws and policies that crush dissent, limit free elections, and prosecute political opponents. Xi Jinping oversees a one-party state in China where dissent is suppressed, minority groups face harsh treatment, and state power extends into how citizens live, think, and communicate. These are leaders who operate without the checks and balances of democratic rule, using legal frameworks not to protect rights, but to maintain control. Back home, critics argue that the erosion of democratic norms, whether through political rhetoric, attacks on the press, or selective use of legal power, undermines the idea of the United States as a beacon on the hill. When a president uses military force without clear international authorization, or pardons indicted figures while resisting accountability at home, it raises serious questions about America's commitment to rule of law and global human rights leadership. In an era of competing global powers, actions by leaders, whether in Washington, Beijing, or Moscow, ripple across the world. Alliances are tested, norms reshaped, and the question persists: what kind of global order do we want? One defined by respect for law and sovereignty, or one where might makes right? None of these individuals sits outside scrutiny. But comparing them isn't about choosing the worst person. It's about understanding how power is used and where the world's strongest democracies stand when their leaders are held accountable. Join the conversation, ask questions, demand transparency, because a nation's strength isn't measured by the power of one leader. It's measured by the resilience of its institutions and the rights of its people.